Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for coming back. So now we have our lovely workshop mentors joining us for a little discussion before we get into the afternoon of the actual workshops themselves. So this will be a good chance to have a chat to everybody and find out who's joining us today. So I'm going to do some introductions for everybody. So nice way for you to familiarise yourself with all of our workshop mentors for the day. So let me run through some brief introductions. We'll start with Elle, otherwise known as Woods, is a singer-songwriter, musician, producer. Elle has 5 releases under her belt, each one creating a universe that intertwines her love for music, visual art, fashion and beyond. She's a Triple J favourite with the hugely popular I Belong Here, a collaboration with Setmo that has been certified platinum in Australia. Her songs are used on television soundtracks such as the Netflix series Tidelands and US network TV series The Bold Type, both using her tracks. Wood's first album, Crystal Ball, came out at the end of 2020 to rave reviews. The song Close was named as YouTube's top Aussie songs of 2020. And this is interesting. To coincide with the album release, Woods and her fans created her album Song for Song in Minecraft, as in the video game Minecraft. This was noted by the creators of Minecraft as a world first, and they launched the album Crystal Ball on their official social platforms, which has 12 million followers, alongside the album's release. That's pretty amazing. Elle has a new duo with the Kite String Tangle called Tornado Club, and I believe is working on some new Woods work as well. Please welcome Elle. And next to Elle is Fred Leone. Fred is a highly respected community leader with strong Aboriginal, Tongan and South Sea Islander heritage. Fred is one of the Butchulla songmen. He is committed to passing down the cultural knowledge of his ancestors through traditional songs and dances to younger generations through this work. Fred is a language custodian and a groundbreaking award-winning artist that works across many genres and mediums to bring a distinctly original voice to his performances and recordings. Fred has toured as a featured artist with the legendary Black Arm Band and is frontman for the hip-hop group Impossible Odds, which expresses issues facing Aboriginal people through music. Please welcome Fred Leone. And next to me is Craig Pilkington. Craig is a multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, screen composer, producer and engineer. He's also a founding member of the ARIA award-winning band The Killjoys. Craig owns and operates Audrey Studios, where he's worked for artists such as Even, Goromal Yunupingu, Liz Stringer, Archie Roach, Ben Salter, Black Eyed Susans, many, many more. As both a composer and producer engineer, his albums have received multiple ARIA awards and nominations, including when the Killjoys won an ARIA for Best Independent Album in 1991, which, as I understand, ended up being accidentally dropped into Sydney Harbour at the after party, and a diver was paid a few $100 to go looking for it the next day, and if I'm correct, it was never found. Ooh, interesting. Please welcome Craig Pilkington. And on the end, we have Cash Savage. Cash is front and centre of the band Cash Savage and the Last Drinks, a 7-piece band that are described as gospel, punk, country, rock. And if you haven't seen them live, strongly recommend it. They're well known for their enormous live shows and a fierce energy. They've been playing together since 2008, released 4 studio albums, and we've just managed to nab Cash as she's gotten off the plane on Thursday from a massive tour overseas. I believe it started in Daylesford and ended in the Netherlands. Am I correct? She can't remember. It's...
I don't think I've been to Daylesford. It started in Eltham, New South Wales, and then we did 5 shows in Australia, and then Netherlands, and then it actually ended in Bratislava, Slovakia, this week.
So live shows do exist, and touring does exist.
It does, yeah. It's different, but it's there, yeah.
Well, welcome back. Thanks for joining us.
No
Everybody,
worries.
Cash
Thank
Savage.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, everybody. This is just a chance for us to have a chat. Let's talk about, why we're here today, which is songwriting. We're talking about music and its creation. So I guess what I wanted to start with was maybe where did your love of music come from? So feel free, anyone, to jump in. We can work our way down the line or jump on in. Craig.
I'll jump in. My family are musical, and it's a way that we bond at Christmas was always to play music together.
That's a little bit modest, Cash. Your family are musical legends.
Royalty.
Yeah, my family are musical royalty. But sitting drunk around Grandma and Granddad's Christmas table at Christmas, they're just aunties and uncles and mums and dads. So, it was the way that I bonded with my father in my teens, was through music. And it was the way that I bonded with my family. And so it was sort of a language that was there for me, a communication that was there, and all of my siblings have all picked up different ways of communicating through music through their lives, and I think it's all because that's just one of the communication channels in our family.
I grew up in Townsville in North Queensland. My dad plays banjo and he's a park ranger, and my mum plays French horn and she was a marine biologist, but now she works with farmers. But it was always that I had to take an instrument at school, like our whole family, everyone has to choose something. And I started with piano and then went to orchestral percussion because it was just a piano you could hit with a stick. And that just seemed like really easy, and because there was no percussionists in North Queensland, or like I knew them all. There was like 4 of us. I got to do different opportunities with professional musicians, like doing orchestra pits and Australian Youth Orchestra, where there's a bunch of sort of regional outreach programs. So I just sort of fell in love with that side. And then when I was about 12, I started making up songs with my friends, just for fun. And I think I just sort of occupy silence with melody, and that, yeah, I just really love songwriting, and it was sort of started as poetry and just writing a lot, and now it's my job where it's just very rewarding, and I get to work with a bunch of different producers and also produce myself. So, yeah.
Yeah. Hi. So I got into music at a young age. My dad used to play ukulele, and my dad's Tongan, and that'll be every Sunday. Everybody would come, all the uncles would come, who I thought were my uncles, but they're actually the dudes that my dad stowed away to Australia with in '71 from Tonga. And they would be drinking kava after church and just singing. And so that got drilled in my brain, and Mum was always singing, and she always was really proud of her. She had really good vibrato, so she was like, "Oh, Auntie Uriel's trying to copy off me again. I'm the only one who sings like this in the family." She was always singing. And then when I was 13, my older brother was a metalhead since I was little, and he gave me his drum kit. I was 13, he gave me his drum kit, and he said, "Oh, here you go." And it was my first experience. I loved all different types of music, because Mum and Dad would just lay us on the ground and play records and listen to the radio. And summer in Brisbane is just hot as hell, and so you're just laying down on a sheet on a wooden floor, or a little blanket just to try to keep cool, and the fan going and the record player playing. And so I listened to all sorts of music, and then my brother gave me this drum kit, and he said, "Oh, happy birthday." I was like, "Oh, cool, I got your drum kit." And I was like, mad, because he knew I was always on there having a go. And then he said, "Just one thing, if you play anything but metal or rock on this, I'll come back and I'm gonna smash it up in your face." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he goes, I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, serious." He wasn't serious. He's a real calm, quiet guy. Anyway, so I just started playing grunge and metal and rock, and then all my older cousins were into rap, and I listened to rap as well. And then as I started getting older, and I was like, the milkman money that I was getting paid wasn't enough to buy skins and like sticks and stuff. So I thought, fuck this, and I sold the drum kit for $100 to my mate's brother, and I started getting into rap because you didn't need any money. You could just write a rap, and somebody could go, and then I started writing rap, and then went from there. Now I do all sorts of music, play all sorts of music, seen the world over a couple of times for music, and been around the country heaps, and won a couple of awards, and that's about it.
I'm not sure where my affinity to music came from. There's no music in my family, but I always wanted to do music. The only music available at the school that I went to was a brass band, so I grew up in the strange subculture of brass bands as a kid, which is very strange. But at the same time, learnt to play guitar and wrote songs, and I started my first band when I was about 13 with my brother and some mates, in which I had to play bass because I was the youngest, and really sort of went from there. The only choices for tertiary education in those days were classical course at the conservatorium or a jazz course at the College of the Arts. So I did a classical trumpet degree while I was playing in bands, and for my bands I would write songs and use a 4-track to be a control freak and put all the parts down for the band to learn, but the cat pissed on the 4-track, it became a 1-track. So that got me into the endless addiction of music technology equipment, which is why now I run a recording studio and can be the complete control freak of doing everything. I've managed to sort of, I guess, have a career in music by doing lots of different things. I play music with different people, and I compose for film and TV, and produce albums for people as well. So I've managed to be able to keep doing what I really love doing, and make a living out of it.
Amazing, thank you. So I guess everyone has some different beginnings, and your love of music has come from all different places. And some of you have touched on this, but I'm interested to hear, and I'm sure we all are, about when you really first started writing music. How did that happen? Why did you decide to actually start writing? And maybe about whether you had any mentors or anyone actually showing you the way. How do you learn how to first write songs?
So I was doing classical piano, and my friend Erica, she didn't really care about the books and the learning all the scales and stuff, and she made up something, and I was just like, what? It was we were 11, and then I wrote lyrics on top of her piano thing that she made, because I was like, well, she broke the rules, I can break the rules on and layer something on top. So my first sort of song was a co-write, where she was, and we were little, I don't know, we had contracts for friendships and stuff, we were weird kids. So it was kind of we were doing music business, where she was like, well, if you play this anywhere, you're gonna have to tell them Erica wrote this and you wrote this, and actually it came from Erica at the start, and I'm like, I will tell them. So it's actually, we laugh about it now, because
this is copyright 101.
literally, we're 11. It was what? Now I look back, I'm like, yes, we grew up and we became the thing. But yeah, I just really enjoyed the problem solving side of music. And when, I know for me, my big aha moment was I was obsessed with this show called The OC, which was it was probably just a little bit too old for me, but there was a placement of Imogen Heap where I just looked up the song immediately and found out that she had made it herself, and she had made it in her room or her apartment with just a 1-track, or I don't know, a 4-track recorder or something. She just chopped it all up, and I was like, I have that, I could do that. Cool. I didn't know that was leading me down this path of music production and sound engineering and songwriting, but I was just so captivated by that. And I think music placement has always fascinated me. We see it now with Stranger Things, where it's number 1 Kate Bush, and it's that sort of bypassing everything and just being this pinnacle cultural moment. It's so fascinating to me. So yeah, that was my aha.
Mine was I listened to a lot of rap, and I was really bad at reading, and so I could just take in songs. Like I just say, take in songs and sing songs, and I was walking around. I lived between two suburbs. Lived between my auntie's house and mum's house. And mum was always crook, so she'd go to hospital, and then we'd go live with my auntie in Inala, which is the western suburbs, which was like Compton in 1992 and 93. It was like hectic, and I was up at Inala Civic Centre, and there was this Torres Strait Island guy, and he was making this noise with his mouth, and he was like 18, 19. He was like, and everybody's standing around watching him, and then it's like, wow. And I knew some raps, so I'd just start rapping these raps. I'm like different, like Sugar Hill Gang and all this old stuff that I listened to, and it's like, oh. And then every time I'd go up there to the shopping centre on like Thursday night or Friday night, or Friday afternoon or whatever after school, he'd be there. So he I was about 13. That happened up until I was about 16, and then my cousin. Do you
mean that you would start rapping
yeah,
live?
Yeah,
this is your first writing experience was also a live
no, I was rapping other people's stuff. It was basically covers. But everyone's like, amazing, because not many people were into hip hop back then. So they're like, wow, this kid just is like a freak. But I was bluffing. And anyway, so about 16, my cousin said, oh, this guy wants you to come around and audition. He's got a rap group. And I didn't know there was these older blokes, and this guy was a promoter. And so like before Aussie hip hop, or before hip hop in Australia became big, it was like, oh, we'll get you guys to come up from Sydney, sleep on the couch. 2 can stay at Forest Lake, 2 can stay over in Brackenridge, 2 you can stay with Steve over in whatever suburb. And so I walked into this house in Inala. There was like 1 million records. This dude standing there, DJ Daddy Doop. He was a graffiti artist as well. And I was a graffiti artist. I was in the graph. And so he's there, and this other bloke, Steve, who's now passed away, and Marlon, my cousin, said, well, bust a rap for them. And they said, is this your rap or thing? And I was like, oh, okay. And my cousin had written a rap. So I thought, I'll just do my cousin's rap. So I busted this rap, and they're like, oh, amazing, man, this is awesome. And they're in their 20s, I'm 16. And they're like, all right, we run events like every month called the Hustlers Convention, and we bring dudes from all around the country, Perth, downside from down here, or Earth Boys Crew back in the day, all these different people from all over the shop. And they said, so we want you to be a part of this hip hop crew. And I was like, I don't know how to write. How many other raps have you got? I said, none. And they were like, okay. He's like, okay, I'll teach you how to write raps. And so over that year, I didn't do any gigs or anything, but then suddenly it went from, turned 17, and then I'd rock up to school on Monday, like, shattered, because I'd been out all weekend rapping in clubs to drunken people, like up in your face, oh, that was amazing, man, spitting all over you. But I loved it, because it was cathartic. I was talking about some crazy shit that I was seeing, and people were like, that was an amazing story, how did you think up that? And I was like, I fucking saw that happen. I saw that dude get stabbed. That happened like 3 weeks ago at an Alex Civic Centre. His name was John, so it was really cathartic to be able to get that stuff off my chest. And that was it. I was 16, and then it went from there. And then 10 years in, I was like, oh, this is going nowhere. And I knew everybody. By then I'd made heaps of friends, and my mate was getting bad on drugs, and he ended up passing away. But 10 years in, I was like, I'm going to quit. And there was this JB Seed had John Butler, the Seed Foundation had the first Indigenous hip hop. It was called Speak Indigenous Hip Hop Competition. And I was like, I put in 2 tracks. I'd recorded 2 tracks at a mate's house, and the date they said, we're going to let the winners know and everybody know on this day whether you've got it or whether whatever. And I was at work, and it was like you had to refresh your page every 5 minutes. So I was like, 5 o'clock came. I was like, oh, fuck. Went to see my boss, and I said, no luck, I didn't win. And I walked back into my office. I was like, oh, just give it one more little try. Bing, congratulations. I was like, oh, yes, what? And I ring him up. I ring the number. It was Stacia Gonanen. And then I was like, hey, Stacia, it's Fred. Just like, oh, congratulations. I was like, oh, so like, what do I get? Like, you guy's going to give me like $6,000, $7,000. About what's going to happen? It's like, oh, $25,000, and we're going to teach you how to navigate the industry. I was like, oh fuck. And then I was at the management workshop in Blue Mountains, and then it started there, and then I won won an award, got nominated for a whole bunch of national awards, and up until like just last year we won. We took out Best Song Composed for Screen at the Screenwriters Awards with my cousin, which was just hanging out with my cousin in Craig's studio, writing a song with trials from AB Originals and my cousin Birds. And I think the whole process was cathartic. But that was it, 16. Yeah.
Amazing.
I remember the first song that I wrote, and I was about 12 years old on a train to Sydney for a brass band competition. And I still remember that song, and it really got me hooked on the concept of the entity of a song. And Elle sort of mentioned it by, discovering an Imogen song on the OC. And I think, anyone here, as songwriters, we could sit down with 6 chords, put them in a certain order, put some words to it, rhyme it, and create something. But, is that a song? I think what songwriters do is they discover songs, they get an idea of what it's supposed to be, and then they work really hard to get it to its best version of that. It was really a really great example of it. I was touring in the UK with a songwriter called Martin Stevenson, who was sort of big in the UK in the 80s. And he's a great singer-songwriter. And we were in Leeds or somewhere like that, and it was like, BBC 4 radio interview. And Anna and myself from my band were there, and he was there. And the guy really conservatively said, so Martin, tell me a little bit about your songwriting process. He said, oh, I don't write them. I find them. The song gods send them to me. And he was a real tripper, but I don't think he was completely taking the piss either. I think he sees these songs as entities that he discovers and that he gets to know and that he gets to love. And another good example of that is that there are computer programs that will recognise if you try and put a song up that belongs to Warner's on YouTube, some template will say, no, you don't own that, we're going to take that down straight away. But we can recognise, computers can't, but we can recognise an AC/DC song done in a Western swing style, in a different key, at a different tempo, because we know that entity, we know that friend, and we can recognise it even if it's dressed up as something different. So I think that's a really good thing to remember about songwriting, is that we have a relationship with these songs, and getting to know what they are is almost as important as the process of writing them. And I think I got hooked on that really early on. And I'm lucky enough, working in the studio, that I get to stick my head inside lots of people's creativity. And that's a really fantastic insight into how they write songs and where they come from and what those entities are. And you see through, when you work with someone over a few different albums, you see their style, and you can start to recognise certain patterns in what they do and how they build this beauty in a song that it is a living sort of entity. And I think Elle's actually hit it on the head with going straight to games as a new way, because obviously that's a huger audience than any radio station will reach or anything like that. So, where they live once they're created is really boundless these days.
I always wrote songs. I wish I remember some of the first ones. I feel like somewhere in my junk there is the words to some of the first songs I wrote. But me and my friends would write songs for fun in our teenage years, just because we wanted to be in a band. And we wrote these songs which were okay. But we would write them together as a bonding experience. And that's sort of where I started to hone writing songs and get the hang of putting words to music and the way music moves. I'm not formally trained as a musician. But it wasn't actually until I was sort of mid-20s that I started writing for what became The Last Drinks, that I really started to understand what songwriting was within me and what I needed to get out of that. Before it was just like, you know, here's some words for a verse and here's some words for a chorus, and nobody used the term pre-chorus back then, but here's the bridge, and I know it just would go together like this misshapen jigsaw puzzle. But at some point I stopped just writing songs and started writing for myself, and the songs really changed in that moment, and they mainly changed for me and what I was actually putting out, and they became vulnerable and personal, and once I started putting those songs into the world, people really connected with them in a very different way to how they'd connected to any other songs that I'd ever made before. And that connection was sort of drove me to continue to write like that. And now they are everything to me. They are my therapy, they are my friends, they are my memories, they are my photographs. They're all those things. But there was a moment, there are a couple of songs in my back catalogue that were a real turning point for me. So I always wrote songs, but there was a moment where songs became a part of who I am and and my everything I am, I guess.
So maybe we could talk about inspiration and what that moment is that makes you pick up your instrument or pick up your phone, whatever it is, however it is that you get that out. What do you find is your inspiration to start writing?
There's a really great quote, and I can't claim to have discovered it myself because Charles Jenkins talks about this a lot. There's a really great quote from a visual artist saying that inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us roll up to work and just get started. And it can really be anything that can start you writing a song. It can be a word, it can be a person, it can be an experience, it can be a sunrise. It can really be anything. And sometimes some amazing songs have been written with fences around them, and you've only got to look at songs that are written for the screen. Songs like To Sir With Love or The Way We Were both songs that were huge hits that were written specifically for the title of a movie, and that was the starting point. Here's write me a song, The Way We Were. Write me a song, To Sir With Love. This is what the movie's about. So sometimes fences can be really great. So to start with a chord, to start with a hook, to start with a word, to start with a name, anything's a starting point. It's a matter of where you leap to from there.
Yeah, I think there's obviously a whole range of places where you can grab your inspiration from. A big one for me is I love music. I love listening to music, and sometimes I'll hear a synth or just a song that absolutely floors me, and I'm like, that's amazing. I wish I could just take this bit. It's almost like a sample in my, collage-y approach, but just being I want to treat a choir like that, but I'm making a whole new thing. And I just, it's some podcast I was listening to, and it's the idea that you listen to something and you're oh, I could do that better, which seems really bold, but it's I just wish the song was just slightly different, and I'll just pull this around and often you make a whole new thing. But then I guess from doing production the last 5-6 years, I was starting songs in my computer a lot, and it's actually been so nice dealing with the pandemic and all of the stuff that's just very just that quite surface level emotive processing, I just sit at the piano and play F major. And I'm like, whoa, yes. And just like start writing a song from there. And it's completely nothing to do with technology and nothing to do with sharing it or releasing it or it needing to be perfect. It's just like this beautiful friend. So yeah, it can, I don't know, there's a whole range of things, really.
Would you like to weigh in on this topic, Cash?
Inspiration's a really funny one for me. Like, I actually find the most inspiring thing is being in crowds of people watching bands. I don't know whether it comes from my incredibly competitive nature and my the way that, as I said, when we were teens and our early 20s, playing guitar was like a game, and writing songs was a game. And so seeing other people put out their feelings, often there's something about it that switches my mind into a different mode. So I find that very inspiring. I will often have a playlist dedicated to songs that I want to figure out the mechanics of. Sometimes I hear songs and I'm like, why is this G so fucking special? You know, like what? And so I'll often like put that playlist in. If I've got nothing on, I'll just like have a look through those songs and try and figure out what it is, or even lyrically why some of the simplest words are so very powerful. Is it the way that it's interacting with the music, or is it just that simple words are powerful? You know, like you know what's going on there. So there's that, and then also my brain likes to find lyrics, and if I'm in a position to find them, then like I often find driving is the start of a lot of songs for me, or walking, just where, particularly driving, where I think there's a huge section of my brain which is focusing on keeping me alive, and so that part's doing that, and that part's the thinking part, and then there's this part in the back that's like, okay, cool, you do that, and I'm going to think about this other shit, and then and lyrics will come to me from there, and it's usually just me thinking about what's going on in my world. It's just being out. I found it very difficult to create during lockdown because it was fucking uninspiring to sit in a room and not be around people. Well, I find the vibrancy of other humans really important in my creative process.
I asked my daughter during lockdown if she'd been writing, because she's just started her new band, or her first band. And I said, have you been writing songs while you've been stuck here? And she said, what am I going to write about? Nothing's happening. No one's getting together, no one's breaking up, nothing's...
Aww.
I think what inspires me, the thing that drives me is like growing up, when I was young, I listened to a lot of music, but also heard a lot of old traditional songs being sung when I was a kid. And then growing up, and one of the first things one of my older cousins told me, he said, oh look, you know, when you're singing this song, he goes, because there's this process of like fishing that happens in the community, and they're like, good dancers will be fishing for like the next dancer that they're gonna teach everything that they know to. A songman or songwoman will be watching for like who's really receptive, reciprocating the knowledge that's being afforded to them, and then giving it back and bouncing those ideas back and forth and taking in information. And so this thing is happening constantly with every generation of like Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people. And I noticed, this older cousin of mine, he said, oh, you know, when you're singing, he goes, you know why people are so like it when you sing? He says, it's because you're remembering. Do you remember what you were told when you very, very first started singing? I said, yeah. it's not you that's singing, it's all every generation of old people that had that song, that a part of their spirit is in that song. And so when you sing it, they're with you, like every generation back. And I never forgot that. And it's amazing with music, because we're, human beings, we're all connected to earth. And like I can listen to any genre of music, I'll just love it, and I'll connect with whoever's singing or what people are playing, whether it's, could be classical, which is sort of, I don't mind it. Like I'll sit through it. I've been to heaps of shows. I used to work at QPAC, so I'd be at a lot of shows. But things to do, when people are singing, in particular, contemporary music, and that exists in that moment. Like I'll listen to. I remember hearing Adele for the first time, and my hair was standing up, and I was like, "Yep." Ooh, there's this thing that we're. Another thing I always think about is what we're leaving behind are like artifacts. So the 1,000 years, when they pick up this music or find this MP3 and they work out, oh, this is how you play this old technology, and they play these songs, they're going to get a snapshot of what it was like for one sector of the community or one region or one area, or how it was politically at the time, socially at the time, what was happening. It's all there. We always look back, we look back and scour over the last couple of 1,000 years, and I wonder how much of the information that we're the things, that artifacts that are found, were intentionally left. And I think that's something that we have the luxury of doing now as musicians, is just leaving our heart, just pouring our hearts out into our music, so that, I always say to my partner, I said, if I was to die tomorrow, I've written enough music and spoken enough at enough events, and there's enough recorded and written about me that someone can get like my great-great-grandkids can get a good snapshot of who the fuck I was, rather than just looking at a photo and going, oh, wow, man, I got his monobrow. He must have shaved it like me. That sort of thing. It's not a static picture. It's we're passing this stuff down. It's our innate human. It comes from another place. The first beat you hear is your mother's heartbeat, and that's music. So music's always been there. And I think that's the thing that inspires me, and also just boxes and boxes of lyrics. They never get chucked. And so, like this song that we recorded with Craig, my cousin called me and he said, I have to write this song for a documentary, and it's about this. And I said, yep, I got a verse. I wrote it in 2010, and there it is. Not in any order or anything. I'm not Flash. I was just like, fuck, where is this? Took a couple of hours. I found it, picked it out. I was like, there it is. And then I rewrote it because it was like just scribbled, and that was it. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think the idea of having that stuff laying around, I guess, do you, I guess for everybody, do you find yourself with a bunch of those hidden gems laying around and you rediscover them sometimes, or do you tend to see your ideas through to fruition?
I have for a while, my piano was back at my folks' place, and the piano seat is just full of old songs. And I was like, man, that'd be so embarrassing if literally anyone goes through that seat. It's just my whole 15, 16, 17, 18, just completely pouring out. I don't think I necessarily go back to those, but I love when you crack the code on, I was trying to write a New Year's song probably wrote about 6 songs, and just would take little pieces and keep carrying it through. And so I didn't necessarily discard the old things, but it just took me a while for it to arrive. As you had mentioned, how a song can arrive to you, or it feels like it. But sometimes it's just you just have to click it all into place. That's how it feels. And then all of a sudden it's in the right arrangement. You're like, oh my God, can I keep this? Amazing, we did it.
And you wouldn't have your songs that you're writing now without those songs
exactly.
that you wrote then.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think as well, there's sort of an inbuilt sort of quality control as a songwriter that you have. If you finished to a complete finished recorded song every idea that you had, you'd end up with a lot of very average songs.
Yeah, I call it the playback.
Yeah, and these days people can actually put every idea down into their phone and have them there, but it's the ideas that keep niggling at you, that you keep coming back to. That's your inbuilt quality control that starts off good ideas.
I find lyrically I have lots of notes, and for the last few albums I'm actually in the process of finding the right book. I find the right notebook, and it can take ages, and in that time I get a lot of notes in my phone about lyrics, but then once I have that right book, I write in it if I ever have any ideas, and that will be, the album will come from that book.
What makes the right book?
It's really hard to know. Actually, this last album I bought 5 books, and only one of them was...
How many pages did you write in to discard the book?
Like 3.
Like 3 pages in?
Yeah. No.
That's so cool.
And then, yeah, they all look quite different. One of them's got like a Lego piece on the front. It's like a Lego branded book.
Did it make the cut?
Yeah. One of Us is written in that book. The album is essentially written in that book. And so within those pages, there's lots of stuff that never made it through. There's often pages with just one lines or whatever, or sometimes just an idea, or sometimes just like verbal diarrhea of just what's going on in my mind. And then musically now, as you say, you can just record anything. And like I literally just went into that piano in there and started noodling on something, and I was like, oh, I like that, and just recorded it. And I'll probably forget that that's on my phone, and then next time I'm driving or flying somewhere, I just listen through all those little like 20-second grabs of bits. Often like my kid will be playing in the bath in the background, because I just will sit in the bathroom while she's in the bath, and so you can hear her splashing around in the background, or you can hear what's going on. But there's, all those little bits. And sometimes they stand out. Just there's something about, not just in the moment of playing them, but also in the moment of re-listening. You're like, that actually is kind of cool, and I wanted to do something with that. So I try not to scatter my creativity everywhere, because I, like you, have like, boxes of stuff from when I was a teenager in my 20s and stuff that hopefully no one ever reads, but for some reason I keep. So now I try and contain that, but otherwise it's just all over the place.
So can I ask if, when you're writing, do you have an audience in mind?
Depends on the song, or like at the moment I've just finished a new Woods record, and a lot of it is quite personal and what I've been going through, and there are times where I'm like, this is going to be so fun live, but I think that that's sort of the extent that I'm trying to, I don't know, like I want things to be upbeat live, and I found on my first EP it was very like electronic and chill, and when I toured it and did 3 shows back to back, I was like, I'm just a bit bored on stage, because I'm just like, ooh, like it's not a live EP, it's more of a streaming thing, or I don't know, it's just what I liked making. But then slowly, as like for Woods, I want it to be big and cinematic and have big drums, because I want to be feeling that way. But then there's other ones where like there's a couple songs that are super just chill and kind of sad, but it's like my experience with being vulnerable is thinking, oh, like I have to do justice to this song, because it won't just be mine. I want it to be and I do think of my fans in that, but at the end of the day, it has to come down to how I feel about it, because it's such a tricky position where Woods is my business, but also Elle, that's like my art. And the way that I've, over time, kind of compartmentalized is I have Tornado Club for electronic stuff, a whole bunch of stuff I make just for me, and then Woods, it has to be like this conceptual thing that I can play live. And if you think too much about like Triple J or audiences and things like that, you want to believe in what you put out. I think you want to be able to stand by it and be like, yes, that's a good example of what I do. So if I like make something for someone else, particularly things like radio or something, when it doesn't work out, you can't stand beside it and be like, I knew. So I don't know, it's a ramble. Thoughts?
I think a really good example of that is Tones and I was recently interviewed about her huge hit, and she was talking about the regret of the success of that, because the whole industry keeps putting her in a room with people to try and make another one, and the whole idea of it was just such an off-the-cuff thing. And I think the industry, I don't think there is, any real industry. It's just a ship of fools that chases around what's successful. But we had to put up with 10 years of more marketable versions.
Great quote.
Yeah, quote.
We had to put up with 10 years of more marketable, better-looking versions of Radiohead after they were a huge success. And I think that's not a great way to look at creativity. It's always those things that are groundbreaking that you keep coming back to that you enjoy so much.
I was trying to keep that burp to myself. What was the question again? Sorry, I'll just Do you
Don't
have an
keep it to
audience?
yourself.
Another quote.
Let it go. I was just asking if you write with an audience in mind, if you think about
Yeah, so I made this mistake. So the first EP that I released with that money from JB Seed, I started the first Indigenous record in Queensland, and then 2 of the songs got smashed on rotation, dual rotation, one on high rotation on Triple J and one on spot rotation, and then got onto international radio, and I got a couple of little sync deals out of it, licensing deals, and then 2 years later, writing with radio in mind totally fucked me, totally wrecked me, because I was like, now I've got to do this again, and how am I going to make sure that the radio is going to... And it was the biggest learning curve for me, because, I didn't sleep. 9 months, we smashed it out. We were getting everything ready to drop as Big Sound was about to happen, and it was fairly mediocre. And I'm not crying, by the way. I've got this watery left eye for the last 3 months. But yeah, so...
It's okay if you are crying.
It was...
Radio didn't like it.
Radio didn't like it. And radio didn't like it. And so, yeah, there was maybe one song, I think... No, we did win a Queensland Music Award out of it, and got nominated for like a bunch of stuff. And in my head, I was like, why is it not getting this radio play? And then after that moment, I was like, you know what? Fuck trying to make music. That was a mistake that I made. And I saw what it was for what it was, and I thought the song that went, got high rotation was a song I wrote about my neighbour who was a racist, and I went over and having a drink with him, and I wrote this song about it, and then suddenly bang, everybody's singing it around the country. I got to tour around the country with a few different crews, and so I vowed never to just try to write for any particular, write for radio or an audience. It's always just, like Cash was saying, like when I'm driving or things are happening, I'm like, I gotta record that and I'll write this down, and then you get studio time, and then it's in that week or two leading up, 3 weeks or 4 weeks leading up to it. It's like, okay, I gotta start pulling things together. What's gonna happen? And over the last little bit of worked on 3 different projects, so that are going to come out next year, late this year and early next year. and it was it was just a case of living and learning, I suppose, without.
It's tricky, like thinking of the question being audience. There's like, I think from doing it for a little bit, there is that like the audience of being radio, thinking of a massive sort of unknown, and then there's like the live, like seeing people in the front row and being like a human, singing your words back. And then there's also the audience of like, I'm writing this for my mum, and that could connect with everyone. But like, yeah, the idea of the audience, I think mostly doesn't work out if I'm thinking of it as this big grey cloud of like, what is Spotify chasing? What is Triple J chasing? What is, how do I get to tour the US? Whatever it is, it's like you're not necessarily thinking of just like these singular people or singular moments. And for me, the songs that floor me are always those ones that are like, like the vulnerable, it feels like it's like, oh my gosh, it's exactly what I'm feeling. Or it's the euphoric, I need this to get out of my head. Or
Yeah. And sorry, just to come back to what I was talking about before, like I don't necessarily write like that, but like in the process of just working on 3 different studio albums all at once over the last two and a bit years, refining back and taking like 15, 20 songs in each release and then going, okay, these, just being really honest and upfront and putting it out to your peer group and going, what works? Have a listen. What do you think? Oh, that sucks. Why does it suck? Let me break it down. Oh, this didn't work. You need a pre-chorus here. You might need this, that, this, whatever, and just drop in any ego and go, okay, that's cool. I really respect that person. I'll take that on. But then in this whole process of refining it back and then getting this rich core group of songs, in this time now, it's like, okay, that is going to work for this will work for that, this mob are going to be interested in that. So there is that eventual realization of where your audience is, but it shouldn't be in the process of writing it. The writing is just coming out, it's just pouring out of you over time, and that's just my personal thoughts.
I have somewhat had the luxury of never having mainstream radio attention. We have built The Last Drinks from our live shows, and I know we get a lot of community radio. We've had lots of albums of the weeks, and every one of my albums has had albums of the weeks on all the major community radio stations and stuff. But I think that because of that, I've always just written for myself, and I know that people respond to the songs that mean something to me. So I don't really think about the audience at all. Often when we're in the process of putting the song together with the band, I'm like, this is going to be fucking sick to play to an audience. Like, this is going to be really fun. And in that process, but it's sort of more of an afterthought rather than what I'm actually, when I'm actually writing. So yeah, I try not to think of the audience. There are voices in my head who are people who get in there, and they're really interesting humans in my life that have obviously said something that struck a chord with me, and they are often in my head when I'm thinking about songs. But yeah, I don't write for anyone other than myself.
So luckily we've got the 4 of you still this afternoon for their workshops, because I feel like we could keep talking about this all day. We've got a little bit of time for some questions. So if anybody would like to throw a question out to our wonderful panellists. Yes.
Hi. What's a good way to get a song heard? And where's the best place
What type of song is it, and what is your dream situation for that song?
Probably country crossover genre, and I'm a writer, so I am also looking for recording artists that would want to take it.
As in, so writing for country.
Writing for someone to sing.
Yeah, I like if you can picture the goal and then you can work backwards from it. There's like all of a sudden there's like some little steps that make sense. But if it's a big sort of grey, I don't know, cloud of like a bunch of things would be good. It's hard to like gauge that success. But if it's writing songs for country music, or maybe you have some artists that you really love and you follow them, or you want to do that genre yourself or something like that, it's I guess reaching out to those people and being like, hi, I really want to do this job, are there opportunities where I can do this, or could I get in a writing session with you? Or it's I'm going to write heaps and heaps and heaps of stuff and put it in a playlist, figure out like what kind of playlists are good for sharing that kind of music. But if it's like, if it's a watered down goal and you're like just sort of putting things everywhere, burning yourself out on socials or whatever it is, if that's not actually the goal or the success at the end, that's only why I asked what your intentions are, because the beautiful thing about music is it exists everywhere. Like you call up on a phone on hold, there's music. Radio, there's children singing in choirs. Like in terms of like being a songwriter and getting your stuff heard, there's millions of ways. It just depends on what. Yeah.
I think Cash touched on something that's really incredibly important in our culture, and that's that we're blessed with, at least in Melbourne, we're blessed with 3 really fantastic community radio stations that have quite genre-specific shows. Triple R, PBS and 3CR, and they're really great programs that will play songs by acts that would not otherwise get any radio airplay, and they're really fantastic ways of people discovering music. And for that style, there's a show on PBS 3 Feet, what's it called? 3 Feet High and Rising. And there's Twang on Triple R, and there are quite specific shows that will play alt country music or country flavoured music that wouldn't normally get played on the radio. So that could be a really great avenue as well.
Do you have the song recorded? Then I think that's probably one channel. Also, Melbourne's music is a community, and I know it can be tricky to get into the community, but the community really looks out for each other. It's a really beautiful space. And so you're doing the right thing by coming to events like this, meeting people. The presenters on the other end of those radio stations are humans who love music in Melbourne, and they love Melbourne musicians. So reaching out to them even and just being like, I really love your show, here's a song, they probably get quite a few of those sorts of emails, but I'm sure if you send a couple you'll get through. There's also, there are people like Tim Thorpe who does the Saturday and Sunday mornings on Triple R, and he is a real bastion of any genre. But he would also, I think, would be that country crossover for sure. So reaching out to those people and trying to immerse yourself within the community of music is where I would probably start.
And he's got up really early on a Saturday morning for the last 33 years.
I know, I've done his program a couple of times, and one time we did it on my guitar. We decided instead of getting up, we'd just stay up all night. And it was in the arts centre during White Night, and we just stayed up all night, and my guitarist fell asleep on stage while I was being interviewed. But
it's authentic.
It was, Tim's great, and but there are many amazing people who've been within that community for a long time who are very welcoming, and they may seem intimidating, but they're not. They're just humans who love Melbourne music.
Do we have any other questions? We've got time for one more question before we break for lunch. And don't forget, these guys are hanging around today, so you do have the chance to actually come up and ask a question if you'd like to. Okay. Oh, there's one.
Sorry, thanks again. Do any of you have any methods for, whilst not thinking about an audience other than yourselves, sort of protecting yourself from giving a song out too early in its kind of infancy, I guess? Hope that makes sense.
I think a song's never finished,
Yeah.
so no. Because if you listen to any of my albums, particularly the earlier ones, and then you heard us do any of those songs live, they are clearly those songs, but they're different, you know, and I don't think, for me as a musician, I never want to finish a song. I don't like the idea of locking something in forever as this one way, constantly trying to fuck up my own songs. So, yeah, I don't know how to answer that question.
I think you did.
I think Leonard Cohen kept writing verses for Hallelujah his whole life.
Yeah, it's 61 verses or something.
I
like
would,
that,
yeah, I would listen to that. It's progressively sadder.
Yes.
One thing I was thinking about is like just people that you trust, you know, like if it's something that you feel vulnerable about sharing, other artists that you trust, that you know from around the traps. And yeah, so like sometimes if I'm feeling like, and most of the time it's not like, I don't give a fuck what, half the time I'm like, oh, I don't really care about the feedback, but I just want to know I'm on the right track. If I'm on the right track, that's cool. And then I'll give it to some of my oldest friends that are in the music industry that I've known for years, and, you know, and like, not yes men, like people that'll be like, yeah, dude, that was epic. Hey, what the fuck happened in the second verse, dude? That was pretty weird. Like, you know, just people that'll be straight up with you, and yeah, reality check you on sometimes.
I think that releasing is like a timestamp, because like I can't really make anything perfect, and especially when I'm mixing and it's like bring the hi-hat down the tiniest bit, and then I'm trying to just get back in the keynote before, it's like, wasn't it beautiful when we just didn't think as much about it when we were younger? And it's just like, I'm just trying to just trust my gut and be like, this is a good song, I really like it, my friends like it, put it out, and I'm going to make something even better next week. That's been a really beautiful thing that's coming out of COVID, I think, because I'm like, before it, I was trying to make everything really quite calculated to a degree. Like I was like, tour this, do this show, release this package, these are the success kind of metrics or whatever. Now I'm just like, how wonderful to play a show, how beautiful that we can release an album not in a well, I don't know, it's still going, but like not in lockdowns at least. So, you know, it's like there's a little bit of joy in like that, just sort of, if it's ready to go and you can make something better next week, like you can just let it go, because otherwise there's so many people with like hundreds of songs on hard drives that will never take that risk of sharing it that next level. And it doesn't start with a bang, like you build your way up. So, yeah.
I just want to say too, we often record to tape. We do overdubs, but the drums, the bass, the guitars, and sometimes the vocals, I'd record it to tape. And that sort of solves a little bit of that problem. Because it's just, that's it. And we can put overdubs on there, and we do, but that really eliminates a lot of fluffing around with what's going to happen there and how we would potentially change it. And we don't always record to a click too, so it's like, that's it. That's the take.
There is a bass mistake on Gene Genie, but it was the best take.
There's heaps of that. There's like, if you listen to Townes Van Zandt, there's sometimes talking in the back of some of the tape. You can hear like someone said something in the back, and they're like, yeah, that's the one. So that's the thing is, if it's the take, it's the take, and it doesn't need to be perfect. Often our drummer will be like, I just made a fuck up. That'll be the take, and it often is because what's actually happened is he's let go and stopped thinking about it and just put this beautiful take down, and one of the fills will have a bit of a drop or whatever, but it doesn't matter because the take's the take. But yeah, limiting myself is part of the process there.
On that note, I think we need to wrap up, and I would like to just take a moment and say thank you so much. The four of you have been amazing. We really appreciate your insights and taking the time to actually talk to us about this. And of course, you'll be hanging around today and giving a couple of mentor workshops, which we deeply appreciate. So everybody, please put your hands together for our amazing panel.